Hello and welcome everybody.
Hi,
We've got
everybody.
a special podcast happening. So I'm going to introduce our guests. On the top left there, we have call center operator Feza.
Hey, it's your girl, Ferial. What's up, everybody?
Bottom left, we have Talitha.
Hello. Did everyone see the hot cross buns I tried to bake yesterday?
Admittedly, I thought that your picture was the first batch of hot cross buns.
Mm-hmm.
And the second batch.
No.
Beautiful.
No.
And our guest today, welcome to Drew.
Hello, everyone. Lots of energy here. I like it.
Yeah, totally. And so Drew is currently in Shanghai. Is that right? Is that where you are?
Yep. Shanghai Minhang District.
Cool.
Wow.
And Drew runs a business in China, but originally from Australia. So we love to do getting to know you questions to begin with. Drew and I have connected because he's actually a client of FabTax, and I'm just curious, how did you become a client of ours, and when did that all start?
I believe a friend of mine, we own a property in Queensland, and we used an agent to acquire that property, and I believe she introduced me to you.
Awesome.
She is, you're based in Adelaide, right?
Yes, that's right.
Yes. So that was the connection. A Chinese Australian girl. Her name. I'll find it on my WeChat. I have her WeChat, but that's how she introduced me to you.
Awesome. Love it. Love word of mouth, and even going on WeChat. I've got some questions about WeChat actually as well.
Do you have a WeChat?
No.
I've got a WeChat.
I got a WeChat.
Wow, you're very progressive. That's cool.
Yeah.
I'm the only one without WeChat. But
Don't know how to use it, but I got one.
Yeah. I chat to one person, you know.
I posted a photo.
who do you chat to, Talitha, on WeChat?
Wade.
Oh, there you go.
Wow. Yeah. Of course.
We love to just get a bit of an understanding of people. So our go-to question on that is your favorite childhood celebrity crush. Who was the person that stole your heart?
Well, stole my heart in a celebrity. It was actually, I don't know if you remember the original Inspector Gadget cartoon.
Totally.
Yeah.
So there's Penny and Brain. So Penny was my first childhood crush. I don't know why. I was a young kid, so that was my first childhood crush.
I love it.
Talitha,
That's cool.
Can you find on your phone a photo of Penny just so we can show our viewers?
There's the new Inspector Gadget as well. I think she looks different. My son watches it on Netflix.
Penny had a makeover.
Original, I'll try to find it.
All right.
That's cool. I think Talitha's going to look for it, and we're going to keep going with questions. Now, do you have an inspirational quote that you live by or anything like that?
I have two.
Ooh.
Okay. Because I like both of them. They're both kind of opposite or different. One's from Albert Einstein, and I guess it kind of is good reference to what we're all going through now, some more than others, is necessity is the mother of all inventions. Necessity is the mother of all inventions.
Love it.
So that's the first one. And the other one by, it was quoted by Jim Morrison from The Doors, is the doors of perception. When the doors of perception are truly cleansed, things will appear as they truly are. So that's another one. It was actually by Jim Morrison, but it was quoted by another poet or philosopher.
Very cool.
Deep quotes there. That's awesome. And you obviously probably do a little bit of traveling. So what's your number one travel tip for life?
Now or prior to COVID?
Both.
Yeah, prior and or now.
Well, now zero.
Everyone. At prior. We're about to travel again in who knows when. What travel tip do you have for us?
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, no travel during COVID. If you are traveling, you're stuck in a place, or emergency business meeting and you have permission to go, masks. I know it's a little uncomfortable for a lot of people, and especially Westerners, because it's just like not part of our culture. Here, everyone wears masks 24/7 outside. And the other thing is hand sanitizer. I have on my backpack hand sanitizer, carry, and just wash your hands with a lot of soap, lather, and like a doctor would do for a good 20 seconds, 30 seconds every time you come back from doing anything.
Good. I love it.
I need to get one of those hand sanitizers and put it on my
You have them in the office, Miriam?
everywhere. I just got to put it on my key ring.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
There's no point having it on the printer. Like, once connected.
This is actually from Australia. We bought a whole bunch from the reject shop.
Yeah.
There was no need for them back then. I mean, this was about a month and a half ago in Australia.
Wow.
So it's probably very hard to find now.
Yeah, it is. Did you know like a month ago or?
I think they did. Is that
Well,
right?
I mean, we were in Australia
Yeah.
on holidays. A little bit of backstory, and then by all means we'll continue the story. We go back to Australia. We live in China. I've lived in China for nearly 15 years, originally from Melbourne. We go back to Australia usually for Chinese New Year, sometimes Christmas, once a year. Stay at my mum's place in country Victoria.
Yeah.
So we went just before Chinese New Year. We were in Australia at my mum's place. We were there for about a week. And then the news started coming up about Wuhan. And we were like, oh, okay, that sounds pretty serious. And then like a week and a half, it's like, wow, Shanghai's locked down. I mean, it happened really fast. We usually go back for 3 weeks, but we decided to cancel our return airfares and stay in Australia kind of indefinitely. Until things kind of cleared up in China. We had no idea it was going to progress outside. We run an education certification and fitness certification education company. We don't do it just in China, and we had another course in Korea. So I could, not to get you too confused, but
Internet. We just
Uh-oh.
So,
I didn't enter Korea. So we lost all of our business in our offline education, and I couldn't even get to Korea. So then we decided to come.
Uh-oh.
What do we do, girls?
do you want to message him and say,
We just lost you for a bit there, Drew.
can you hear us?
Yeah, we can all hear each other.
Yeah, I know. I'm talking to Drew. Gosh, so how interesting. So so for Chinese New Year, I was in Melbourne and I was going to all the festivals and events that Melbourne was still going. It was still going ahead. And then it was like the super interesting time, because that was when they were the lockdowns going on.
Crazy. I'm so interested in his business with Korea, guys. Does he marry any of the K-pop people? I mean,
Get back in.
oh, good. Let him back in. Tell us a bit about him, Miriam.
There's a bio. He's in the fitness and wellness industry.
Do you want me to read it out, the bio?
Yeah, read it out.
All right. So he moved to China in 2005 to explore business opportunities. Drew has over 20 years in the fitness and wellness industry, and he operates his business from Shanghai. And yeah, his experience about being in the summer and this whole COVID and what's that doing to his industry. He has extensive experience in distribution and marketing.
There we go.
Oh, you
Hey,
Yay!
Yeah.
Oh,
Just reading out your bio to the fans.
Okay.
Okay, so you're back. So we got to the part about Korea. So tell us about what was happening in Korea or something.
So long story short, I mean, all of our education courses were cancelled in mainland China, and so that was 4 courses. I mean, that a lot of income loss. But I also had a course, because we do things outside of mainland China in other Asian countries. So we had one in South Korea. It was our very first one. I was ultra excited about opening up the South Korean market, all gung-ho. And again, I couldn't, because they wouldn't allow Chinese to travel into Korea, or people that were in China. So even if I wanted to come back to China, I'd come back to China, I couldn't get into Korea, but I could from Australia go to Korea. So changed my travel plans there, and then was planning to go to Korea. Booked our tickets, paid our tickets, paid our hotels, organized everything. A week and a half, I'd left it to the last second, but about a week and a half prior to going. And then 3 days after I'd paid that booking, Korea blew up. So we had to cancel that and lost.
What day was that? About what time in March was that?
Well, I had to cancel. It was end of February because I was supposed to be, our course was March 6th. And I was staying there for 10 days. So I had various other meetings in Korea. So basically we booked in February and had to cancel into February. It was crazy. So we lost that one as well.
So
long story short, then we were like, yeah.
Let's talk about losing and how you deal with just, my sisters and I run a few different businesses, and just all of a sudden, straight away, government shuts it down. And it's, for us, it was a shock of just like what has just happened, and we all dealt with it in our own different ways. Run us through sort of how you dealt with the whole losing just full revenue streams.
Well, we lost a lot, but we also, fortunately, for the last 18 months, we've been working on, but quite honestly, got very sidetracked and complacent with our current business, but working on an online business model. That was the future for us. Last year, I was in some months, I was only home in Shanghai for 1 week of the month. Seeing our children and various other things. I mean, that's a lot of time, but it's also a lot of cost, traveling and hotels, et cetera, et cetera. So we were looking at reinventing our business model, but we, again, got complacent and got busy. So fortunately, we had some elements in place, but not enough to fully launch. So what we have been doing now for almost a month is live streaming. I guess, very similar to what we're doing right now. And that's allowed us to continue to do things. And quite frankly, it's been actually better than the offline, a little bit more profitable, far less time involved in traveling. So that's how we've reinvented ourselves.
Right.
Yeah, I know one of my clients, they were dealing business to business, and they were always going to set up their website to go business to consumer, because it is a hot sort of product right now. And all of a sudden COVID happens, and I speak to them within a week and they're like, yeah, we set up our website and everything. So definitely can see the areas that people could, like the opportunities. Now there's no complacency. It's like, damn, straight away, adapting and everything like that. So that's really cool to see. Now, you're in Shanghai again. Run us through.
Yeah, you have to pivot very fast.
Run us through what is happening what's your life like in Shanghai right now?
Okay, good. Well, I've been back for almost a month. So I arrived back from Australia, from Melbourne. I arrived back March 8th, I believe. So actually a little bit over a month. So when we first arrived back, I mean, firstly, it was crazy when we weren't in Shanghai. And luckily I was in Australia, and Australia was perfectly normal. So we were very fortunate compared to a lot of other people. So when we arrived back, so I can only give you what I personally get. The airport in Shanghai, Pudong, and a bunch of people with spacesuits on, and checking everyone's temperature. And we have two children, a 2-year-old Adam and a nearly 6-year-old James, and we were at the airport trying to clear quarantine and customs for 3 hours, and no real direction, because they were herding everyone together and you had to fill out a bunch of paperwork, where you've been, how long you've been, have you been to Italy, have you been to Iran? Because back then it was really only Italy and Iran that were the problem, where the problem existed. Again, this was a month ago. Lots change in a month. So it was really crazy. Our son, youngest son, was bawling his eyes out, refused to wear a mask, but you had to wear a mask. I mean, they were like pointing at you. So it was pretty crazy. And everywhere you go, temperature check, they hold a gun. I'm not sure if they're doing that in Australia yet, but holding a temperature gun to your hand. So it was pretty, I knew it was going to be crazy, but it was pretty full on. I mean, they really locked things down, and that's a good thing. So then when we first got into our community in Shanghai, everyone lives in communities or apartment blocks, but it's like a community. So there's a front gate. You have to check in there, and then they check your ID and also check your travel documents to see, where you've been. Luckily for us, Australia was a green zone back then. So we were fortunate we didn't actually have to go through a quarantine situation back then. So we got in. There was still a lot of controls. Only one person can leave the house per time, and you need a pink card to leave the community. So the community is kind of, it was a little easier to police in China to some degree, because it's all community based. There's only one gate entrance, compared to Australia, we're all in houses. So, that made it a little bit better. So fast track now a month later, to give you a little bit of bright side to the story, you're still wearing masks. They still check your temperature everywhere, but you're pretty free to leave the community. There's no pink card checks, things like that. The gym opened, my gym opened about a week and a half ago.
Oh, wow.
Which I was really happy about.
Wow.
It was closed for 3 months. I mean, that's not a short period of time.
Yeah, true. Okay, so 3 months closed. Yep. Cool.
Yeah.
And why
but you have to wear a mask.
Yeah. And is there a certain amount of people that are allowed in the gym, or what? What else did they let open up after 3 months?
Well, it's limited time, so it's not the normal times. It's only 10 to 8 p.m., where it's usually much earlier and much later. There's no swimming pool. There's no sauna, because that would mean people can't wear a mask in the swimming pool. And also sauna, people can't wear a mask. So, yeah, people aren't allowed close to each other. And there's not a lot of people going. I think a lot of people are still a little bit afraid.
Mm-hmm. And do you personally know anyone that's got COVID in the Shanghai district or in China, or what's like? Yeah, I mean, none of us girls have known anyone yet so far that's got it. What about yourself?
No, I don't know in China, and there's been no new cases that I'm aware of at all for a while, especially in Shanghai. But I do have a friend who lives in Shanghai, but he's not in Shanghai now. He's in France, and he and his wife, he's a very close friend. He and his wife got it in France, and they got the mild symptoms, and they're recovering just fine.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. And so, when do you kind of think Shanghai's going to go back to normal, or what's your sort of how do you think it's going to play out for where you are at the moment? What's your sort of timeframes on what mentally are your timeframes on things?
Well, the main thing is schooling. So schools have been shut now prior to Chinese New Year, so which was normal, and then after Chinese New Year, and they're still not open in Shanghai. Some provinces or states, you guys would refer them to as, have begun opening schools that are, very safe cities. They haven't had any or very little COVID cases, and they don't have the same population of Shanghai or Beijing. There is a preliminary date for schools to open in the first week of May. It's a preliminary date. Basically, the schools need to be ready to open, but they won't have the green light to open. So they need to have some things in place. So it could be another month for schools. And a lot of other things are kind of open, but just limited. Restaurants are open, but there's not that many people that go to restaurants.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I'm not really sure how China works or anything. Like, has there been government support in all these businesses that have been shut down, or is everyone just, I don't really know how it works. Like in Australia, we've obviously been getting stimulus and that type of thing. What has happened with businesses? What happens to businesses in China when it just all gets shut down?
Sure. Well, firstly, I follow what's happening in Australia. I use ABC iView, and we watch the live streaming ABC News. And I use a VPN to trick my computer that it's in Australia, so I can watch it. Then we plugged into the TV. I have to say, out of all of the world, I think Australia and the Australian government is handling it superbly.
Yeah.
Maybe they've made a few errors here and there, but honestly, incredible. I'm very proud to be Australian.
Yeah.
I'm not biased to any politics whatsoever, but just seeing how they've been handling it, the cases, the stimulus packages are just outrageously huge. I don't know how they're going to pay that back, the government, but it's incredible. And I think, a lot of support and love should be given to what's happening to the people at the front lines, and including the government. I mean, he's doing a speech every day. I mean, I don't know how he does it. In China, there has been a lot of support. If your premises is under a state-owned enterprise, they have to give you rent reductions. Unfortunately, if it's privately owned, it's up to your negotiation skills, and not all people are giving rent reductions, which really sucks. But that being said, the renter has the upper hand in some regards, because people aren't looking to rent right now. So for us, for example, we just delayed paying. We just stopped paying. I mean, we'll pay you next week. So we haven't got a reduction per se, but we just stopped paying for a while. There are a lot of tax deductions, and depending on the size of your company, the bigger the tax reduction. So things like social security payments to staff, and in China there's a whole bunch of different social security payments that are quite large, and especially if you're a large income earner and a large company. So they've been completely taken away by the government. So there's a lot of taxes that are not being paid. There is some support, but there isn't, honestly, nearly the same support as what I've seen Australia giving businesses and employees.
Wow.
Yeah, cool. And so what's your focus business wise for the rest of the year? Is it this online, where are you focusing your energy now for this year?
Yeah, I mean, online. I mean, we're doing live streaming now. We'll be putting together our online curriculum predominantly for China. We do have multiple languages. We are launching an English language live streaming at the moment. Australia can even join in because it's similar time zone. With what we do, and I think a lot of others do, I think this lessons that we've learned is, with the connection tools like Zoom and the internet and everything, there are no borders. I mean, yes, we're isolated. Yes, we're you can't meet people physically, but you can actually access and meet people a lot easier through the internet.
Yeah.
So, the sky is the limit per se, depending on if you can restructure your business model.
Yeah. And I mean, we're on a Zoom now. I've never actually met you face to face or anything like that, just on emails, and we're now doing a Zoom. So it's definitely brought that out. What sort of areas do you think for the traditional Australian businesses where shops have been shut down, what's sort of your experience or any insight that you could give to those types of businesses here?
Well, a lot of businesses were still going here, but they were relying on logistics. And that's one thing I have to say, Australia, living in Asia, not just China, but Australia does need to dramatically improve its logistics, delivery systems. It's so slow, and there's just not enough infrastructure in place. If Australia was going through COVID but had a proper logistics system, a lot of business could reinvent themselves very, very quickly. Whether it's restaurants and cafes as well for food delivery, as well as many, many other businesses. And not, yes, you have logistics systems, but they're very slow, expensive, and just not as buoyant as what China and parts of Asia are.
Is that, do you think, because Australia is just so far apart in their states and things like that? Or what, is it just because we've had it so easy or so good and haven't needed to do it? Or what do you think?
Well, yeah, it's definitely part of that. I mean, we are spread out, and we're also a very, very small population. Australian population is smaller than that of all of Shanghai. So
Wow.
yes, it's part of that. But yeah, I mean, people are still used to offline. China is like, it's in many ways very ahead of the curve in a lot of areas. I know it's a little, I've lived here for 15 years, and people that come here, go, wow, I didn't know China was like this. It's very ahead in some, very, very ahead when it comes to commerce and the sophistication of logistics. I mean, we ran, prior to our education business, we ran a health food store chain called World Health Store, WHS. We run that in China for 11 years, and it was all retail, bricks and mortar. And it did very well in the early days. And now we're talking nearly 15 years ago, or 10 years ago, it was running very well as far as retail. But the internet and logistics just completely decimated, many retail channels, except, restaurants and clothing, because people like to try on clothes. But selling health products was, you buy it online for cheaper and easier.
Yeah, there's like across the road from me, there's one of those protein sort of places that are selling
supplement
powders, and I'm like, how on earth are they going to survive this? Like, they've got a massive shop, and it just doesn't kind of make sense anymore. Now
it does. It's the world's changing. The way I describe China, and I think it's a good analogy, but it's very fitting to understand. China went from not having telephone. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, you just cut out. You said China's not having.
You keep going. There's a bit of delay, but that's fine. That's cool. Whatever you were saying, keep going.
I was just saying it's a good way of understanding China, of where it is today and where it came from. A lot of people were living in communities, and there was only one telephone to share for, like, 500 people, and I mean, of course, that was a long time ago, 30, 40 years ago, but it skipped a lot of things. Like, we already had telephones in everyone's house. I mean, and we had cordless phones, et cetera, et cetera. They skipped that. They skipped a lot of the home computer systems, and they went straight to the digital age almost overnight, because they didn't have a lot of those things before, versus America, Australia, Europe. We've kind of like gradually been evolving and changing, but they skipped a whole bunch of things. So that's why it's where it is today as far as technology and e-commerce.
Yeah, cool. Now I've got a question. It's not really an area that I'm familiar with, but the great Australian dream is to develop something Australian made and sell it to China and make billions, because the population here is not quite anywhere near as China. One of my clients before COVID was setting up a WeChat to sell a wine product, and all of that kind of then dissipated. What experience shares do you have around people that have this dream to make billions from selling something Australian made?
Well, it's not just. I mean, it's not just Australia. It's every man and his dog in every country in the world. China is the be in and end all. Fortunately, Australian products are very well sought after in China compared to many other countries, depending on the product category. Wine is one, health products are another. So everyone is begging to be part of China. It's not easy. If it were easy, everyone would be doing it. There are some, stories, and largely by luck. For example, Swiss in the health product category, and Blackmores, they just got lucky. There was no business plan. The CEO who sold his company for $1 billion, Swiss, I mean, he takes all of the credit, but in the health products industry, we know the truth, and we know what happened. He just got lucky. The Daigou shoppers were buying things in Australian health food stores, and they thought Swiss was a good product. It was the Daigou shoppers that made the Swiss very hot, not the CEO. Good on him for exiting very well, but he shouldn't take much credit. Yes, everyone wants it, but it's very difficult. What people don't understand is everything is about branding. We own another business. It's a boutique branding agency, and we run social media, brand building, brand localization of the brand, and oversee it. Because I was explaining this to a friend yesterday, who is in China, but he's only been here for a year. The importance of branding. Products don't mean much to Chinese. Branding means everything to Chinese. And the reason is because of the culture. I'm sure you guys have heard of the phrase face, give someone face.
Sort of, yeah.
Sure.
You know the term face, what it means.
Like have a person?
Yeah, like,
No.
it's good for their ego, it's good for their face. Like,
Okay.
in Chinese phrase, it's called mianzi.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we understand it, but what we don't understand as Westerners is just how important that is. It is one of the biggest parts of the Asian culture, not just Chinese, but Chinese is the tip of the spear when it comes to Asian culture. So it's huge, is face. And a brand purchase will bring someone face. So for example, Nike, Nike's a hot brand. I'm cool. I'm successful. It brings me face because it's a well-recognized brand. So when you're looking at taking market share, and Swiss and Blackmores are a very good example, they're taking a huge portion of the lion's share of sales in the health products category because it's a famous, trusted brand. Whereas you look at Australia, America, New Zealand, blah, 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 in one category, you might have 80% of the sales are by 200 brands. 80% of sales, 200 brands. In China, 80% of the sales may be 3 or 4 brands.
Wow.
3 or 4 brands. But there's a lot more brands in China. So it's not that they have less brands. It's just that the branding and the mianzi, or the face, and what that brand can bring value to that person if they're, eating something, drinking something, or, wearing something. It's validation to others from others that they're cool and they're accepted. So branding is so much more important. So if Australian companies are in Australia to win be part of the Chinese dream and selling $1 billion, they have to think about branding. And branding means making a point of difference. What makes yours different and better than others? It means packaging. Does your packaging stand out? Is your logo stand out? Does your name stand out? And what are your product differentiators? If it's the same as everything else, then don't even start. They're just going to waste a lot of time and waste a lot of money.
Yeah, that's really good.
So basically, if you're an Australian or even an American business, you need to chat to Drew if you want to get in to the market. That sounds like the best way to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're happy to help and talk to people. We don't take on all clients because there is unfortunately a huge amount of clients who just think it's easy and they expect to be making $1 billion in 1 month. It doesn't work that way. We only work with clients that are very serious about the long-term investment into China and growing it steadily, because there's no overnight success here. So I've been here for 15 years. It's a difficult market.
Yeah.
Yes, there's some success stories, but no one's talking about the millions of failures.
Yeah.
And it's tough. It's far tougher than Australia.
Wow.
And if people aren't prepared to muscle up and roll with those punches and learn, I mean, I'm still learning. I've been 15 years. It's always changing. Six months in China in economics or business is like 10 years anywhere else. Things just work at a faster pace. You have to be very nimble. You have to flow with a lot of stuff. And most business owners in the West aren't prepared for that. So they just shouldn't enter. So I'm not looking for clients, in regards to our branding agency. If people are very, very serious about the long term, by all means, we could have a chat. But if they're looking for overnight success, don't even bother.
Yeah, I guess that's that saying about like people think I'm an overnight success, but it's been like 15 years in the making of learnings and the ups and downs. It just sounds like breaking into China is even then like, full on.
Yeah.
Kind of thing
Correct.
as well.
Correct.
Wow.
They make a lot of assumptions. Like, I have a Chinese friend, or my Chinese friend from Australia recommends. It's like they know a Chinese person and therefore they know China. Like it's crazy.
Well, they watch Chinese dramas.
Yeah, I mean,
Ferial loves Korean dramas.
And Chinese.
And Chinese. Wow. Yeah. I mean, I've got Chinese staff, so I'm like, how can we make money
in China?
From China. So I'm guilty of that.
Exactly. And if you had $1 per person in China, you'd be a billionaire, right?
Yeah. No, there was that company that started selling Australian oxygen air to China, and everyone's like, "Oh, that's such a good idea."
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, I've heard of that.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
Oh, yeah. The purest air. So, yeah.
Don't tell everyone of our idea, Talita.
No, someone's already doing it and they've done it. Yeah, overnight success apparently.
And let's go just about, I've got we're going to close up with a few final questions. What's one of your worst, I love to, just hear the war story. So what's maybe one of your worst business mistakes and what did you learn from that?
Whoa, where do I start? I think, in general, and it's been more than one, is, business partners. You really, we ran our business and, a lot of people can be good, but, as people. But, when you're in a business, there needs to be one direction on a business. And sometimes, it can be pulled apart very easy if there's not a consensus goal, like, we're going in this direction. And I think you just need to be, as a business owner, and I've made these mistakes, and it's not that, they're wrong and I'm right. It's got nothing to do with that. It's just you need one direction, one focus. So you need to be very, wary. And these mistakes that I've made is as businesses and business partners. A major mistake I did, and it's going to sound very ironic, but hindsight is a very useful tool, but at the same time, you wouldn't do many things. And that is opening a business in China. The biggest mistake I made in my life was opening a business in China, because like we were talking about before, I had this misconception. It was easy. I'm smarter because I have more experience in the health products industry than others. You know, China is just such a different world. It's not a different country. It's a different world when it comes to business. And there were many, many things as a foreigner that I just can't do. It's got nothing to do with language. It's got nothing to do with passport. It's just got to do with understanding the very, very intricate ways of the culture in business, in government, and just the way everything works, because everything's fluid here. Nothing stands still. Like in Australia, it stands still, but it works at a slow pace. Everything changes here, like almost overnight. And I, you know, my ignorance, my arrogance, thought I could be different. And it was the most difficult 11 years of my entire life. I mean, you know, I had a nervous breakdown 4 years ago. I'm far beyond the nervous breakdown now. I feel fantastic. And I'm very thankful for, you know, what I went through, because it taught me so many lessons about business and so many lessons about myself as a person. But opening a business in China was the biggest mistake, because it's that difficult.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah, can definitely, when you started talking about business partnerships and everything else like that, I'm like, yeah, I can definitely agree. One of my topics that I want to do on one of these podcasts is talking about business agreements, or one of my mentors was like, yeah, it should be the business like disagreement agreement, basically. So when things go wrong, what happens? But I know for me, it's, if there's issues in the beginning and your red flags are going up, then it's just only kind of going to get worse from that. So yeah, I'm like now whenever I deal with anyone, it's like watching for those red flags, or just things that yeah, they're only going to get exaggerated or highlighted as things go on with that. So, but I think everyone has also made their mistakes with business along the way, and it's just one of those learnings. You learn the hard way, unfortunately, and or learn from other people as well, and try not to make those mistakes. But you know, I'm a bit of a know-it-all sometimes, so I think I know exactly everything, and then you realize
Sometimes.
and then you realize, no, maybe I don't know it all.
Yeah, Miriam, you should start a business in China. Go for it.
After this one, I don't know
Yeah.
what it is. For it. But I do have this like dream of learning Mandarin one day. Actually, do you want to share some Mandarin with us, or is it Cantonese or Mandarin that you know?
Mandarin. So all of China except the south part of China speak Mandarin, and many other dialects, but Mandarin is the national language. It's only Guangdong, south of China, and Hong Kong that speak Cantonese. And in Guangdong, or Guangzhou area, will speak Mandarin and Cantonese.
Right.
In Shanghai, they actually speak Mandarin and Shanghainese. And Shanghainese, it doesn't sound anything like Chinese. It's a completely different language. So they speak two languages.
Oh no.
But Hong Kong only speak Cantonese. So I speak a little, not fluent, but I speak a little bit of Mandarin, or Putonghua.
And with your, so you've got Asia, so you've got China and Hong Kong. Is there anywhere, China and Korea, is there anyone else, countries that you're focusing on, or you're now going global because you can, or what's your sort of strategy?
Yeah, so we work with, look, our biggest focus and what's been keeping us mostly busy is mainland China. It's huge, and it needs to have our focus, and there's a lot of spending power in the fitness industry at the moment. So that is our focus. But we do courses in Taiwan, which is part of the Greater China, Hong Kong, and South Korea just came on board, although we had to cancel. But we're going to be doing probably a live streaming version there. I'm in talks with Thailand. Thailand to do fitness conventions, but we're putting together a partnership in Thailand, and also actually Dubai, or the Middle East. The business partner is based in Dubai, but they cover all of the Middle East, including the United Arab Emirates, UAE. So that's where we're working as well.
Cool.
But no offline right now. It'll be all online.
Right.
Why's that? No, I'm joking. So, bad joke. So any final words of wisdom that you'd like to leave us with? What's your last word there?
So I think, firstly, as a fellow Australian, guys, be confident that this won't last forever. Australia's an island. We can lock things down better than any country in the world. So no new cases can come in very easily like other places. Again, if you support the current government or don't, I think you should just support what they're doing. I think they're doing a marvelous job. They possibly should have acted a little sooner. And then the sooner they acted, it could have been avoided much more. But there's very little cases, very little deaths. The stimulus packages are great. So again, you should be very supportive and come together as a nation and no divide like, oh, this government did this or this person did that or things like that. I mean, words of wisdom is we're all in this together and we should come together and not try to assert blame to different places or different people. And again, I think Australia is handling it fantastically. So I think we should be very proud to be Australian.
We need to sing the We Are Australian
I
song.
know, right?
That
was great.
We are Australian.
That was great, Drew. Thank you for that.
Oh, yeah, no, free.
Cool. Thank you. Talitha, Ferial, any other questions or we'll wrap it up?
No, I just like the fact that you covered the difference between sort of business in Australia and business in China. I think understanding the culture is really important. And I think it goes for any business owner that wants to start up anyway. You just got to understand the culture and, showing your face in terms of respect and dignity it's incredible how much more it has an impact in China. So thank you for touching on that, Drew.
Yeah, and if I had more time, I'd love to delve into your live streaming tips and how to keep an audience engaged. It's sort of a bit of a hot topic at the moment. Any tips that you can share with us quickly just about how to do live streaming and keeping an audience?
Well, I mean, we have courses already, so PowerPoint presentations that we were working on offline. We have a complete structure in place, and I think it's very important to have that structure. We have edited that structure to suit live streaming, and we also have a lot of materials. So you need to have a structure if you're doing like a course or anything live streaming. I mean, we've got a kind of structure because Miriam had those questions. I mean, that's a structure. But if you're going to do like a proper course, I think you need to have a much more in-depth structure and also outcome. What are you trying to achieve within that course? We have a couple of outcomes that we're trying to achieve.
Cool. Thanks, Zach. Love it.
Thank you very much. And thanks for listening, everybody. If anyone wants to ask a question or share any learnings or feedback, feel free to make a comment, send us a DM, or follow us on Facebook and Instagram, Sisters That Slay Podcast. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, ladies. Very nice to meet you.
Yeah.